Hey there, folks. My name is Eric, and this is MSP Mountain. This is an idea of content that I wanted to create for a while for the YouTube channel of my company Support Adventure, and it's themed around MSPs and their, working with them and how to reach the next level as an MSP. And I'm going to be inviting guests who will help us understand where the industry's at, because I've gained a lot of experience in a few years of running my company Support Adventure, the expat outsourcing company, and I think my position on the industry allows me a way of showing different perspectives that an MSP owner might not actually see being in the eye of the hurricane. So today I've got Nick Jordan over here, and Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I think what you said is absolutely accurate. You have a unique perspective because a lot of MSPs, they live in their MSP and it's the only MSP they know, but you're working with dozens and dozens and dozens of MSPs, and you get to understand what the good people do really well and what the people that aren't doing so well aren't doing enough of or doing too much of.
Exactly. So, yeah. And you also have a lot of experience working with MSPs. Let's switch to the other camera. Okay, we got two cameras for a little variety, a little spice in your life today. So, Nick, tell us about your history working with the companies you've worked with and how you worked with MSPs and stuff like that.
So I was an early employee at Bittitan, the makers of MigrationWiz, used by something like 10,000 plus MSPs in like 85 countries. And I was in a very similar position where I was selling software, but it was a very consultative role. And it's not just buy some licensing, it's let's talk about your business model and how to position yourself and help you win more business so you'll buy more licenses.
Now, Bittitan, they do MigrationWiz, am I correct?
Yeah, they do MigrationWiz, email migration from anywhere to, primarily Office.
So if you've got an old IMAP server or something like that and you need to go on over to good old Office 365, they would be a good company to sort of talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. And where they really shine is if you're migrating from more complex systems like Lotus Notes or Zimbra or GroupWise or on-premise Exchange.
Wow, you're so nice giving your former employers a nice plug here. So.
They taught me everything I know. So
okay, so yeah, and what have you been doing lately? Because I understand you're in the content marketing sort of arena now.
So we employee number 8, we grew to 200. I burned myself out. I took a break and I transitioned over to the marketing side of things. And now I actually work with some, ISVs in the Microsoft ecosystem, helping them generate.
What does ISV stand for?
Independent software vendor. So it's all those people like MigrationWiz, like IT Glue, like Skykick, like Proofpoint that make applications that are used commonly in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Okay. So lots of software as a service companies, and that's the majority of your clients now.
Yep. That's
and
correct.
You're running your own consultancy, basically?
So ContentDistribution.com, we help with organic content distribution, and, this problem we're solving is that 70% of B2B content doesn't get used to generate leads or nurture existing leads. And so we align our content that we create with what people are searching for, and we can generate business impact 3, 6, 12, 18 months after publishing.
Okay, great. We can talk about what it's like to market to MSPs, and we can also dabble a little bit in this conversation on what everybody wants to know is how MSPs can better market themselves to new prospective business-to-business clients. So, where do we start? So you were employee number 8 at Bittitan.
Yeah, I got an opportunity that I wasn't qualified for. I didn't understand what, I didn't even know Microsoft had an ecosystem or what a partner was.
Well, what was your background before you started at that company?
So I had founded and blew up or failed 2 startups prior, and the CEO of Bittitan, G-Man Yip, thought, I could probably learn what I was brought in to do, which was manage our telecommunication and hosting partnerships.
Okay, and what was the biggest challenge of, what's the difference between the way that those bigger clients operate, like the bigger telecommunications, that whole sort of mega enterprise level versus the small dude-based MSP?
Yeah, so I worked with everyone from Rackspace and AppRiver and GoDaddy to like Sprint, AT&T, and Time Warner Cable, and then probably 1,000 MSPs, systems integrators, et cetera. And the biggest difference was when I was working with MSPs and SIs, they would take my advice, somewhat seriously. I'm usually talking to the business owner. He doesn't have that big of a team. He can roll stuff out pretty quickly. But, when you're dealing with an AT&T and you're the business development rep of a vendor, they don't do a lot of listening to best practices that I've seen that the industry leaders are doing that AT&T should also be doing, but isn't going to do.
They kind of have their own thing and they're doing it. It's compartmentalized among different staff members, and the person you're talking to might not even be the decision maker, and you're having like a half an hour conversation so that the person you're talking to can break it down to a one paragraph proposal or plan for the decision maker to go, yeah, okay, or no.
And it's not just, there's one decision maker, there's 5 or 10, and to align everybody, you have the support team, you have the sales team, you have the marketing team, and just need buy-in from all the teams to be able to go to market successfully. Whereas with an MSP,
with MSPs, you're talking to usually the guy. That's what I really enjoy about marketing to MSPs and working with MSPs, because you can actually make a difference there. If you give them the right solution for their pain points, you make a difference. And and I don't know. So my favorite sort of level of MSP right now to deal with is the ones that have between 10 and 25 technicians on board. Was your experience similar?
I actually really like working with the big guys because it's a 2-year sales cycle. I have to wrangle 5 decision, stakeholders on my side, 15 on their side. And it was just a lot of fun to be able to, negotiate legal agreements against Sprint, for example, is a 27-year-old who didn't know what a Microsoft partner was, 6 months prior.
Okay, so yeah, and you did lots of the conference circuit and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, probably 24 conferences.
24 or 2,000?
24, yeah, 24.
Okay.
World WPC before it was rebranded to I think Insight. The World Telco Conference, Parallels, if you guys mess with their stuff.
Yeah, did you have a stand?
Yeah. Sometimes we had the same sponsorship as Dell at WPC.
Okay. Sometimes
it was just me in a booth, at a 200-person conference talking to guys from telcos around the world.
Right. And so going back to the MSP thing, was it easier to make a sale than to the telcos, or was it harder? What were the different sort of catching points on the deal?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
So MSPs were definitely more transactional, right? They had a need, and they did some research, and they wanted to know whether you could fulfill it, and if so, just give them the licenses, and they're gonna go do their IT thing. And the big guys is really consultative and strategic. They're basing, huge go-to-market plans around our software and its ability to work on and align different teams. And the MSP space is interesting though, because a lot of the people, are traditionally IT guys, and they start
off with a guy like me.
Yeah.
Fixing computers around the hood.
Getting on your knees under the desk and pressing buttons.
Oh, sometimes I still get the odd job where I show up at like a friend's house and have to go under the desk. It's like, oh, this brings me back. Anyway, so yeah, like I probably, if I still lived in Canada, I probably would own an MSP and be scaling my whole thing. And well, now I'm here in Belgrade, Serbia, and running my international sort of team of dudes around the world who help MSPs by, working their help desk. So it's an interesting. I kind of skipped the point where I would own an MSP, and instead I started working for MSPs as somebody who would be owning an MSP, and so the perspective has been mounting. But yeah, just the whole thing that you were saying before we started this interview about how smaller MSPs will be like, nah, but we can do it ourselves. We don't need your product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's really the wrong way to think about it. Yeah, you could be doing it yourself, but if you can save time, and you can lower the skill level necessary to implement the thing you need to implement, that's a big win, especially if you can create something that's repeatable and consistent.
Yeah, because I like migrating mailboxes, for example. You got an IMAP server and some crappy ISP or like provider of some sort and so you've got this IMAP server, and then you open up the new Exchange thing, or you archive the IMAP things to a PST file, and then you have to move it all over to the new Exchange Office 365, and it's just like I was one of those guys who was like doing it himself a lot of times, like in my private practice, doing that sort of thing myself. And it's like, ooh, well, I can spend the next 3 hours doing this for these 5 users, or the next day, or I can spend like $75 for these 5 users.
That's
or
exactly
something.
what it is.
Yeah. So it's a question of scale, and one of the things at Support Adventure where we're constantly trying to get MSP owners out of this sort of mentality of not using the best way because they're trying to save money, because, well, our whole business exists like as our main unique selling point is we are a premium service for outsourcing. Yes, you save money. Yes, you're going abroad, but you're not getting overly rigid service from India, or you're not getting service from the Philippines where you have level 1 techs that you're hiring that have a knowledge base that they're reading scripts off of to give your support. It's actual real human beings. And so getting them to take that jump. That's why I say that the what did I say, 10 to 25 MSP who already have 10 to 25 internal staff. Like that's the one where they've actually been through this a lot. Trying to cut corners, trying to save money, not using the best solution because it costs money and all that stuff. And well, if they're past that and they're ready to trust, like my whole business is based on giving you help desk staff, and we're gonna onboard these people with the best methods, and we're gonna make the recommendations that you are gonna use the best systems like IT Glue and either Autotask or ConnectWise and their RMMs and stuff like that, rather than messing around with cheaper solutions that end up essentially putting your staff in eternal workaround mode. I mean,
I think one of the things that your team member said before we started recording was really insightful. He's like, I love this client. They one of the new MSPs he just brought on board, and he's like,
he started today.
All their servers are the same. All their VPNs are the same. All their what other things are the same? It's all the same. And that consistency just makes it so much easier to do your operations, and it lowers costs, it lowers training time.
Yeah, but how do you deal with that? Okay, you're going around hustling, and we'll get to this later, but the hardest thing for MSPs to do is get new clients, and then you have like 6 other MSPs giving proposals and trying to undercut you on cost and promise better service whether they can deliver it or not. And so you end up signing this contract with a company. It's day one. You might have mentioned that their firewall is an old piece of junk, but they aren't ready to replace it. They want you to like bring the goods. And the goods meaning like, we're going to start calling you on Thursday and you've got to solve our tickets. So you're still proving yourself at that point. And while you might be able to put a proposal, it's not going to be accepted until you onboard them. Or unless your reputation is incredibly high as an MSP and like your branding is all super slick, your references and the clients that you can attest to having on your service are super awesome. Then you can actually say like, and when you're not desperate for work, you can say, okay, well, you know what? We will bring you on, but you have to go through an onboarding and you're going to have to replace that firewall. It's going to be $5,000 in project work before we even get going, because we know we want to set you up like all other clients, because we know what works, what's going to work for you. It's a whole different level, and you can't expect that all MSPs are going to be at that level, out of scarcity mode, and ready to only take the clients that are willing to take their advice 100%. So they end up inheriting all these like infrastructure issues from previous vendors and suppliers, and
I think it's true, but and it's I run a consultancy too, and it's very similar business model to an MSP where we try and put people on fixed marketing retainers, and I'm limited by the ability to hire more people, and I deal with a lot of challenges that MSPs deal with. And, what I've seen is that new agencies, whether you're a marketing agency or you're an IT, service delivery agency, is that, picking your customers, especially at the beginning, is incredibly important. The prior agency I was a part of, we didn't do that. We took on anybody. And what ended up happening is that we had no processes, we had no systems, because everyone was completely different on custom plans. And we got to a point where everybody was overloaded. There was too much work to be done. And what would happen is we'd onboard a new customer and we'd churn one out. And we were just stuck in that cycle for way too long. And we wanted to hire more people, but we didn't have the profit to be able to do it.
Yep.
And so to be able to hire more people, we had to go close more customers, but everyone's already overloaded. So onboarding those customers meant we dropped the ball in other areas. And so this time around with ContentDistribution.com, I've said no to, 90% of the people who wanted to work with me because they're, the way that I look at it now is because scaling is so difficult for a services company is that every project I take on needs to lead to bigger and better opportunities if I'm successful. And so if people want to, dink around with a low amount of money, that case study actually isn't going to get me more business that I do want to work with.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're selective and you wait for those bigger projects and you just say yes, it'll be painful, not, painful in the meantime, but it really sets your business up for a better place for growth when you figure everything out.
MSPs, like my business, like your business, they're typically bootstrapped. It's not like somebody gets like a couple mil of investment before they start their MSP. No, it's like brick by brick, build some stability, get some clients on contracts and all that stuff. And I have a lot of respect for it and a lot of respect for how, my company can actually help them save costs on staffing and improve their structure as well. And I'm happy, that we've been able to deliver a win and sort of also, we deliver staff who's based in countries like this, Serbia, who speak English perfectly and give great customer service. That's our standard. But more and more, we're going into this consulting space where we become experts on this industry as we see common problems being solved in ways that are repeatable among different MSPs. And it is a maturity thing, being able to solve these problems and actually implement this stuff. I can't imagine, IT Glue is such a game changer for so many MSPs because it allows for a level of organization that they didn't have before. But I can't imagine why not all MSPs are using it. I think it's the cost, because when I talked to IT Glue, when I went to their office in England, they said that they were very adamant on their cost and that a company that's mature enough to take their documentation seriously will pay that amount of money for their product. So didn't they get bought by Kaseya? I think they did.
I don't know, but that's awesome. I know they're absolutely crushing it. But MSPs need to think about costs holistically. So it's not just licensing costs, it's time costs. And typically salary is the biggest expense in any business. So, any time you have the opportunity to reduce the time your people spend doing anything is, usually pays in dividends.
And hey, like when those big leads come around, do you want to already, because this is what I always see in MSPs. We're so busy. I'm so stressed out. Sorry, I've got to cancel the call with you because a server's down on site and I've got to drive there. I've even heard that one from a 450 person MSP owner. Like, I'm going to our data center now because the server's down. It's like, wow, you still have a data center and there's a server there and you think that driving there is going to actually, wow. So everybody's so busy. So the point is, like, when you get those big leads, are you and your staff going to be all burnt out? And really busy, too busy to handle new business because you haven't put in the structure in your business that will allow it to run smoothly, like IT Glue, like standardization of stacks of equipment and technologies between different clients. It's like, when the window or the door opens and something flies your way in terms of a lead, are you actually going to be able to go in there and do your best selling and your best implementation? Or is it just going to be more sort of half-assed documentation and stuff like that? I mean, you need to change these things systemically and structurally, and it's like building a foundation of a house. You can't decorate the master bedroom without a foundation, unless you're living in a shanty town, you know. And a lot of MSPs are sort of like shanty towns in the way that they communicate with each other, that they build different parts on, the variety of different projects they take on. It's like you're just winging it every day.
And what ends up happening is that you get on this treadmill where you're just winging it, and you never have time to step back and think, okay, you know, how do I actually, you know, stop running in place?
Yeah. So, well, the panic does subside if you listen to the experts and buy the good technology. It's like, if there's something that, it's like software development. It's like how I know some MSPs that have developed their own ticketing systems. Guess what? We use them as supportive venture technicians, and guess what? They're not as good as Autotask and ConnectWise. And they probably cost a lot more money to implement and maintain than Autotask and ConnectWise. So if there's a thing out there that does what custom development, I have shied away from this like big time and not wanted to go into this area in any major way, because it's just like, it's such a series of rabbit holes after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And it's like the whole business, all the tools that you need are already out there. And if you need advice on how to connect the dots, there's consultants like me who have seen how other people connect the dots, how good an environment can be, what a really good operations manual for an MSP looks like, which is something that a lot of MSPs don't actually have, and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's help out there. But first, you need to admit that you have a problem.
If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, you should definitely do it now, because, you know, Eric has seen.
Slick, man.
He's worked with people that, you know, you want to be next year, and he's going to be dropping knowledge bombs on how those people got there.
Hopefully, some of my clients will actually want to come on the show and you know, zoom in and
out themselves as using
high quality expat outsourcing company supportive venture. Yeah.
Well, I hope they're willing to take the risk.
Oh, well, I'll offer them the anonymous thing. It's like, hey, this is Bob who owns an MSP in Nevada. Actually, it's New York, and and you know, like something like that. But whatever. I mean, just spreading this wisdom and having MSP owners know that they're not alone. Because it's a very lonely thing to own a business, right? And the best MSPs I know are really happy to have peers who they can talk to. And so, yeah, I mean, the MSP thing on Reddit, the subreddit MSP, it's pretty good, a little prickly at times, but I think what we need more of in the industry is more people like sitting down and having a chat rather than posting stuff. So that's why you go to conferences, that's why you have peer groups, that's why so we at Supportive Venture are dedicated to providing that sort of connection, and maybe we can even get some of our clients on a mastermind, because, you know, some of our clients are still wondering how to get out of the break fix model, and some of them have been years and years out of that, have 25 technicians plus a whole global after hours team on 3 continents from our company. And it's like, guess which one I more prefer to talk to?
Which one?
The one that has 25 people.
Yeah.
3 guys from us. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably a lot more streamlined. Their operations are a lot better.
They don't cancel calls.
Yeah. Because they have to go put out a server fire, or someone.
No, they got guys doing that. It's part of the culture.
Yeah.
And so I mean, what can I say?
So
there's but who needs my help more? The small ones.
I'll turn you know, some of your questions back to you. You know, what do you see again and again and again that the people that are, you know, at 25 are doing that the people that are at 10 aren't doing, or vice versa? What are they not doing that the people at 10 are doing?
Okay, so it's all about procedures, documentation and procedure, and documented procedures. So it's kind of like when there's a major incident, for example, a major incident like a server is down. That's the typical example. Or an email domain is down. A domain expired and somebody dropped the ball on that one.
And no one knows where the domain was registered.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
An employee's account 4 years ago.
So basically, there's a huge thing happening. People are not able to do their jobs. What happens then? Well, the most organized MSPs will have a dispatcher who will catch that ticket before it's assigned to a technician and flag it as a critical situation, put it on the right status and the right sort of priority in the ticketing system, and start notifying management as they assign it to one of the higher level technicians who will be able to go in and drive results quicker. Some smaller MSPs, in that case, it would just be another ticket that some random first line technician would
Sit on.
Get, and might not even know. For example, to check DNS whois records or something like that to see if the domain's expired. Might spend an hour wondering why, and might actually try to escalate but not have the proper channel to do so because everybody's so busy and they're so used to doing their job on their own and not having a dispatcher. So dispatcher is key. A dispatcher, someone to be the center of accountability for all the tickets on the board and holding technicians accountable, holding management accountable for weighing in on issues that require the input and stuff like that, and having procedures that dispatch can do, like the major incident procedure, which would mean that, yes, this is happening, our best people are on it, and guess what, you client who's suffering from this, we're so sorry about this, we're doing the best we can, and we're going to call you every half an hour to give you an update. Stuff like that. Can you imagine how much less likely it will make it that you're going to lose that client if rather than them feeling like they're all alone and something's not working and they're not getting an update, someone's calling them half an hour or emailing every half an hour and giving an update? It's just having those procedures in place. And, having a procedure in place, well, sometimes there's in the 25-man MSPs, there's some people who only do projects and onboardings and stuff like that, unless there's a all hands on deck sort of thing that gets put out and everybody gets paged and put on, and the tickets have gone too high. The number of tickets is too high for the help desk staff to do. And then guess what? Everybody jumps on for an hour or two and just like crushes some tickets, and then it's back to normal. They can get back to their projects. Just stuff like that. And the communication channels, procedures, communication, because the worst thing that we see in a lot of MSPs is chat as an escalation route, because basically somebody, first line text, don't know how to do something, they write a message in chat that random members of the staff see, and they still have the ticket assigned to them, so they're technically still the owner of the ticket, and people are, taking time out of their day to help them, or maybe not. Maybe they're not getting any response, and maybe it's a really important issue, and what do? The best escalations happen when somebody transfers a first-line tech, can't solve it, and someone like a dispatcher takes ownership of finding someone else who can fix it. So it's all that sort of stuff, like that restaurant. Yeah, it's the same thing that restaurants go through. You start a restaurant, you're making sandwiches by yourself, running the till, running the cash register, and, cleaning the tables, but then you hire more staff, and as you get more than 5 staff, you need a supervisor to organize the staff
processes,
and managers who supervisors enact the processes that that the staff are doing. They sort of manage the process. Their supervisors are process oriented, and management is looking at the whole process of supervisors over
from hiring to
the whole thing. Management should sit back and watch a system work. That's what I believe. So you need a supervisor, which is a dispatcher in an MSP. That's the main thing, and we have had great success in getting
so how technical is the dispatcher? Are they super technical?
Technically curious. No, they're not super technical. They need to be super they need to be a go-getter. They need to see when something, customer service is sort of like the currency that they're trading in. right? And the way that they're driving that is pure sort of management of based on who's got what.
So, so what's a minor issue, what's a medium issue, and what's a major issue?
A minor issue is
and how does the supervisor know, like, if they haven't seen the issue before, do they need to have seen the issue before to be able to understand how severe it is?
There's universal questions like, do you need this fixed right now? Or is it okay if someone calls you back in a few hours? Is this affecting you, only you, or other people in the office? So if it's somebody who
there's diagnostic questions that the supervisor can ask.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's a list of questions. Yeah, the dispatcher can screen a lot, and even dispatcher can do things like password resets and stuff like that. And just like that shouldn't even be on a technician's calendar, because a dispatcher between calls or something, they can just, okay, this is your new password. So it's like level 0. It's like a nurse in a hospital. It's like you get in a hospital, you're not running straight into the doctor's office without identifying yourself and having your records brought up. You talk to a nurse first who figures out who you are, takes your insurance.
So this is actually kind of interesting. So let's talk about the minimum, medium, and severe issues.
Yeah.
How the dispatcher identifies it, and then what type of experience do you need to be able to drive each type of issue, and how common is what's the split? Is it the Pareto principle where 80% of issues are tier 1 and then 20% are...
Yeah, usually it's like most of the stuff is fairly straightforward, simple, and stuff like that. It's all about assessing the impact, and you just have questions like that. So if there's a printer down, even if it's the CEO, it's like, well, that printer's not working. Sorry about that. You need it now. Okay. So can you email it to someone else who has another printer that they have access to, or can you use a different printer? And if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, we're going to keep this ticket open. We'll get someone on it, but it's great that we give you a workaround. So that priority will get lowered.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
A medium issue would be like one person can't do something that's integral to their job, but it's one person.
Okay.
And a severe issue would be a whole office of people or a whole group of people cannot do something, and really money is being lost and stuff like that. So it's a whole. We've got charts and stuff like this of how this should be, navigated. It's like it's a process-based job, dispatcher. So that's the main one. Yeah.
I got a bunch of questions. So the first two are, when someone submits a support ticket, how do you know if they're the CEO? Or they're, the secretary that was hired.
Oh, that can be identified. It can be flagged in IT glue, or
okay, it can be flagged.
Or the ticketing system. They usually have their title in the.
Okay.
You can put it in the ticketing system. It's usually in their signatures, all that stuff. Yeah. Also, stuff like that is really some place where MSPs lack, is like having that information in the ticketing system, having the VIP customers identified, having the authorized user. Like if somebody calls and says, I need access to this guy's mailbox, well, how do you decide whether you give that to them or not? If it's not like a security breach, or, who are the approvers who could approve that type of request? And a lot of MSPs don't have that. And this is something with our after-hours service desk we get a lot. And we are fairly rigorous in having these things all defined before we even agree to take tickets after hours, because usually there's no one to ask.
It goes back to putting in the work up front, where if you define the process and you really make sure it's running smoothly, yeah, it does take work up front. But when one of those tickets come in, your IT tech doesn't have to contact the owner of the MSP to ask, hey, is this person allowed to submit a request? Or who is this guy? And it really reduces the communication overhead in the ramp up.
Yeah.
When you have a well-defined, consistent process.
Yeah. So it's all about and reviewing things afterwards and seeing how things could have gone smoother. That's something we do with the after hours help desk a lot as well. So it's been a huge education, especially this after hours help desk, like 24/7 service, to document that. So someone who's never heard of the company he's servicing, their clients, the end client, they've never heard of it before, but they need to give some good service that's congruent with the daytime team, and
I would say that's the hardest thing about growing a services business is, how do you delegate success? How do you remove yourself from, being necessary to deliver the thing that the clients are paying you for, and delegate that to team members who can manage that?
Part of that is cultural, and part of that is procedural. So on the cultural side, you've got your values, your personality, what you've put of your personality into the business, the type of people that you hire, the way that you treat them, and all that stuff. And then on the other side, it's these toolkits, the documentation and the sort of stuff that says, when this happens, do this, and this is how you do this, and this is how, basically. It's something that I'm constantly thinking. It's something that always needs to be evolving. Like your business
stops.
Yeah, it never stops. Like you can always add more structure, and once you start seeing the benefit of structure, you become one of these people who learns the benefit of structure. Also, values and culture. I mean, it's really important. So, yeah. So let's get to the marketing thing.
All right, let's do it.
All right. You need a little more juice there?
Yeah, so going back to that, I actually have a team member I was working with before we started recording, and, right now she's updating the process docs, and it's something that we haven't done in about a month, and, a lot of stuff has changed, and, usually people think process docs are boring because they have to follow directions or they have to create it, but really process documents is one of the highest impact things that you can do.
Yeah.
Because you can take things out of your head and other people can successfully execute them without you intervening. And that's
just because
that's
people
freedom.
Can run without code and computers can't, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have code for your staff members to run in their job.
It's true. Even things that I do, I build process docs for because I'm fallible. Like I make mistakes all the time, and checklists, like that's a huge thing in healthcare. And doctors that don't follow checklists, regardless of how smart they are, they mess up and they cause mistakes and they kill people. And doctors need to do it.
Yeah, and aviation. This is the analogy that I always look at. It's like, well, IT support isn't rocket science. Rocket science is probably better documented and organized.
Yeah. 100,000%.
Yeah. So, would you want to fly on a plane that was your MSP and the way that you run that thing? Like, would you be? It
restarts twice during takeoff and landing.
Would you be smiling at the flight attendants as you're getting on? If it was the first flight.
Yeah, and those flight attendants probably wouldn't be very old. They'd get new ones all the time.
So how to get all right. So. Yeah, how to get a company out of adolescence. I mean, that's structure. But let's focus on the lead generation and marketing side and this whole content thing and SEO. And how do you think MSPs, so most of these companies are local businesses, right?
Yeah. And I think really, I have some thoughts on local SEO, like, Seattle IT repair, Seattle IT services.
Yeah.
But I think, where the biggest opportunity is for MSPs that can deliver services remotely. If you can service clients on the other side of the country, then...
Well, yeah, all of them are doing that, but like the sales process, in this day and age, like remote is obviously a thing because we're sitting here in Serbia where none of us are getting any money whatsoever for. We're just spending here and getting money on the internet and sent to us, and great. But... the reason I'm marketing to MSPs is because they actually go to these companies and shake the hands and are the local guy. And in business, there's still that. There's still wanting, it is changing, but still mostly local companies, small businesses will want someone who will come to their office and meet them. And, even I've noticed like in this business, which is all remote, the relationships get better after I went to California in November. We're growing with those contracts, and part of how we're growing is the fact that I went and had a beer with them,
Yeah, okay. So I think one of the reasons why MSPs are so localized is just because they don't have the skill set, the knowledge to implement a national acquisition channel. I think, if they did have more leads from across the country, that they'd probably be better equipped to service them.
Okay.
They just don't have those referrals. They're not coming into their...
Okay, so this is big league stuff.
Yeah.
For most, like this will be like over the heads of most of our audience, but that's okay. So if you were a national MSP in the United States and you've got offices in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles and San Francisco, and you're looking to drive more traffic to your... I know this is actually the level because you've been doing like software as a service stuff, and they are on that level of marketing globally even. And so let's talk on that level just because it might be interesting for some people. How would you drive more traffic to an MSP website? What sorts of articles would you have written, and what sort of SEO would you do if you were to want to make a MSP pop on the national level?
That's a great question. So I'm gonna reposition what you just said. So, I think that the next couple minutes are going to be how to compete with the big boys without being one of the big boys. You don't have to have 3 offices to do the things that we're going to discuss. You just have to, spend a little bit of time on it, and you're going to be able to compete with those people that are national. Mm-hmm. And so if it's somewhere you want to be, and then you have aspirations to grow your MSP bigger than the 25 team members today, this is a viable strategy to expand your services area from the people and the people you can shake hands with to, people who have a problem that you're very good at solving.
Okay.
Okay, so, when you think about the MSPs, first you start off with the buyer persona. So who buys from MSPs? Well, it's people that have, oftentimes particular technology problems. And those people will actually turn to Google all the freaking time to find information about how to solve those things. And it's as simple as like, I was just Googling the other day, like, how do I make my Bose headphones work with my, Windows PC because it's not working. The Bluetooth isn't connecting. 2, every time my computer goes to sleep, the Wi-Fi turns off. But those are, consumer-related searches. But people with business problems search for the things that you do too every day. So every day, not every day, every month, hundreds and hundreds of people are searching for on-premise Exchange to Office 365, Exchange 2010 to Office 365, Exchange 2007 to Office 365, hosted Exchange to Office 365.
But you don't feel that the industry is inundated with, free knowledge base articles and Microsoft Help Desk, Microsoft knowledge base and all that stuff? Like, how would an MSP punch through there? Yeah,
so Microsoft's always going to rank really well.
Yeah.
But, typically they're, oftentimes the information's pretty sterile. It doesn't actually, tell you the things that you need to know to solve your issue, especially when it comes to things with nuance. When you talk about, email system migrations, it's fairly nuanced depending on the environment you have, especially when you're talking about on-premise things. And so, the same reason that we're making content right now and creating value for people is the same reason that you would write a blog post on how to migrate from tenant to tenant, or how to deploy Office 365 journaling, or configure archiving, or whatever it is of the questions that people have about the products you support.
So what would you tell an MSP that basically they've got all sorts of people doing okay, so they don't really see the value immediately of having a staff member who's going to sit there and write articles that are going to be public facing and ultimately lead to better SEO or something like that. Would you recommend that they hire an outside team to do this, or would you recommend they hire someone in-house? How do you sort of solve that problem of we could write these articles, but...
Yeah, so what I see all the time is the leadership team is too busy to write it themselves, and they're too busy to review content that other people write. And, MSPs is pretty tricky, actually, because the people that can write the content intelligently get paid a lot of money doing the implementations. And so if you want to actually get someone who's good, You have to pay them what they're worth doing implementations. And so, there's two strategies. One is make your staff have a reoccurring deliverable to write content. And we'll get into what the content should look like in a little bit.
As in sort of like incentivize them?
Or just make it mandatory. This is part of your job description. You can spend X hours on it a week, and we need this by those X hours.
Okay.
Or compensate them extra. That's another great way to do it.
Gamify it somehow.
Yeah, they can take a Friday off if they win the best piece of content. I don't know what it is, but something related to that. The next way is if
what
all
about
this
video?
Video is have them whoever's the expert in it just sit down and talk through it. They can spend an hour, 2 hours.
And then you could get like a content writer to turn that into an article, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. That seems pretty powerful. And you just like make a page on your website which has like the YouTube video on the top and then the nice sort of bite-sized version which is going to get some SEO traction, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of jokers out there in SEO. So let's back up and talk about, why I'm actually on the show today. So, I'm in a fairly unique position. I spent 4 years at, a big ISV in the MSP space. So I know the industry really well. Then I switched to marketing, and right now I have 65,000 first page keywords. And I did it without building backlinks or really doing anything like super technical. And including for another Microsoft ISV, in the enterprise space. And so, the techniques that I'm sharing today are things that I've actually implemented in that I've generated leads for my clients from brands like Microsoft and Capgemini and, Gartner and Amazon and a bunch of really big brands that anyone would be pumped to work with. And basically what you want to do is you want to identify pain points that business customers have. Migration's a big one. Even there's so much money to be made because if you rank for migration and they're migrating from on-prem to Exchange to Office 365, well, maybe you'll get the SQL deal and you'll bring them from, on-prem SQL to Azure and you get to migrate the Active Directory and you get to do this and you get to do that. And there's so much stuff that happens during IT change transformation that it's not just the original project, it's everything else that goes along with their, move to the cloud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So really, what you need to do is identify things. So, I Exchange 2007 to Office 365, Exchange 2010 to Office 365, Exchange 2013 to Office 365. 16 to Office 365, Office 365 to Office 365, Lotus Notes, GroupWise,
So
and
you
then,
need to make articles for all of that?
Yeah, you cannot rank for all of those things with one article. When you search for those topics, you'll see that the first page search results are all focused on that thing that you just searched for. There's no one that's like the migration ultimate guide and ranks for all of those things. And so you need to get hyper specific in terms of what you're talking about. And there's, you could just go on and on and on and on. There's, if you look at the opportunity to drive qualified traffic that can make a decision to buy your MSP services, there's probably 500 plus 1,000 pages that you can create. And so really the brands that have the most success with organic search create the most amount of content, as much as content as fast as possible. And they do a couple things. 3,000 words, 2 sets of lists, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 sets of bullets, 2 tables, embedded pictures, embedded videos, internal links, external links to authoritative sources like Microsoft. How
much does this stuff change, those specifics of?
Basically you could get away with less, but...
Like, has it been the same for the last 10 years? Like, that would be a winning formula for an article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in the algorithms of Google and stuff.
And really, what the strategy I just proposed is algorithm proof. And the reason is because our goal when we create content is to be higher quality, provide more value, and be more relevant than any other page Google could show. Because people have a large misconception about what Google's goal is. And it's not to show the pages with the most backlinks. Google's goal is to grow AdWords revenue quarter over quarter for the next 100 years. And at a bare minimum, in order to grow quarter over quarter, they need to maintain their market share. And the easiest way to maintain their market share is to be the best search engine, show people the best results. Regardless of what you search for, highest quality, most relevant page. And so when you optimize for the user, your algorithm proof, you're going to be fine. And you can outrank stronger domains with more backlinks and more authority and bigger budgets all day, every day by aligning with Google's number one goal, which is to provide the best search experience to the user.
Yeah. And so it's not black magic. You just need to align yourself with the goals. Just like anybody who's sold anything to anybody, they know that by helping people solve their problems, it's how you get paid. So, yeah. So if people want to have a chat with you, can we put like a link to your email and stuff?
Yeah. So, connect with me. I'm Nick from Seattle. One word on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, any other social network. You can email me at nick@contentdistribution.com.
Yeah.
Or one last place. Sorry for all the plugs. Search me on Facebook for my Facebook group. It's called Content Distribution, Organic Content Distribution, and I share what I know, and other people answer questions, and it's great.
Yeah. So, okay, great. And, basically, I hope you guys have enjoyed this initial MSP Mountain podcast or whatever it is. And, thanks a lot, Nick, for coming in and sharing your thoughts. And because I think, MSPs need a little bit more. They need more help than they think they do. Is they can hobble along how they're going and get the odd new client through referrals and whatever, however they're doing it now, and they can keep on solving problem after problem, putting out fires and stuff like that, without really streamlining and involving their organization. But people like us can really help with our specialized experience, like for you on the marketing level, and for me on the staffing level and the help desk procedures. So it's something that I hope that this series of YouTube videos will actually help people understand and be useful in growing their businesses. So thanks a lot. Anything else you want to say?
You're not wrong, man. You have a credible bird's eye view into, a bunch of MSPs, into their most intimate, part of their business, which is their operations and how they deliver value to their clients. And I don't think that can be understated, that you really get the opportunity to see who does what well and who doesn't do what well enough.
And I wanted to ask you one more thing. How has it been working with people in Serbia?
The talent out here is really strong. I was back home for the holidays, having a Skype call with one of my team members, and my dad walked in. He's like, "Wow, she doesn't even have an accent." And I was like, "I know, she speaks better English than I do."
Yeah.
And, people out here are really talented. They're really smart. They're really driven, and there's just no opportunity. The Serbia is awesome.
Yeah. It's like kind of like the last place people would think to look for great world-class talent. But then you come here and you meet people and you talk to people remotely from here, and it's like, well, yeah, they got it. The people who have got it, they've got it here. So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'll say one more thing. Before I came to Serbia, whenever I heard the word Serbia, it reminded me of, just sounded like bad stuff, but it's actually safer than the U.S. The U.S. is the 34th most dangerous country in the world, and Serbia is number 75.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And they've got just as many guns here, actually.
And they've got just as many guns.
Yeah, per capita, so.
I'm from Seattle. I've only seen one homeless person in Belgrade since I got here 6 months ago, and in Seattle, all my neighbors were homeless because they camp everywhere.
It's a great place to be a bootstrapping entrepreneur, because it's so cheap to live here for such a quality of life.
Yeah, it's incredibly cheap, and you're right by the river. The summer is so beautiful, and it lasts till like November. Can't say enough of good things.
Yeah, cool. Well, I hope this opened up your eyes to what we're trying to build here, and why guys like us are over here, and how we can help you wherever you're at. This has been MSP Mountain. Take it easy, guys. Thanks a lot.